WARN Act. Kara Swisher, host of the On with Kara Swisher and Pivot podcasts, is here, and Liam Donovan and Maria Cardona are both back. You and I have talked a lot about Twitter over the years and over the months, and I'm wondering, did you kind of see this coming?
Yeah,
and if so, we talked about this, does the way it actually unfolded surprise you?
Kind of jerky. It's, there's other tech people. Brian Chesky at Airbnb did layoffs and was quite nice about it. It's never good to do a layoff, right? And this layoff is, people were caught unawares. There's all these roving bands of Elon stands in the office doing things, changing everything, including editing documents the way they like it and things like that, which is fine. He bought the company. He can do that. The layoff is typical. I think it's a lot. And I think Twitter was going to do a layoff also. What he's paying, he has to pay. Just so you know, the 2 months he has to pay. Under California law, it might be higher in Europe. It could be higher in New York, where most of the Twitter employees are in New York, or less. I believe it's California or New York. And so he's going to have to pay the 2 months. The 1 month severance is not particularly generous. It's what many tech companies do that, and much more, depending on the years. But then they have to sign away a document to get that 1 month of salary. And it probably says non-disparagement, don't talk about the company, tweet nicely at Elon. I don't know what it says.
Well, I mean, maybe all of the above. Who knows what it says? But, the WARN Act they're talking about is really talking in part about having to, well, as the acronym suggests, warn. Usually it's a certain number of employees and having given a certain lead time to be able to do with this. But what might surprise people are the types of departments where they laid off people from. And I want to hear your reaction. Some of it includes the Human Rights Department, the ethical AI, marketing and communication, search, public policy, wellness, curation, trust, and safety. That's a lot of different departments that are affected, and we are a couple days away from obviously a midterm election and 2 years away at this point from the presidential. And you say you've noticed something already in the air.
Yeah, and I think what is most concerning about all of those departments, those are the departments that kind of take care of humanity, right? And there was actually a study done by researchers from Montclair University that showed that there was a measurable spike in hostility, vulgar language, hate tweeting against people based on their ethnicity, their gender, their religion. And they actually measured it. Like from the couple of weeks leading up to when Elon Musk took it over, there were about 84 hostile tweets an hour. The moment that he took it over, from that moment on to noon the next day, there were more than 370 hostile tweets an hour. I mean, they have measurable
But what are you attributing that to? Is it the, or not you personally, but what is the thought? That the assumption is he would have a free speech notion?
People testing it. That's
just
all.
testing the back.
Well, and they haven't changed the content moderation rules yet.
Right.
They have not done that. And the guy who runs that, Yoel Roth, did point out correctly that only 15% of that staff, the trust and safety staff, were laid off. They definitely laid off in other aros like disability areas that are unfortunate.
Liam, what are your thoughts on this too? I want to come back to you, Maria, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, to me, this parallels the Ron DeSantis stuff. This is all about sort of triggering the media. It's about going after things that are seen as woke. I mean, this is Elon's brand, right? He came in to clean house and go after things that are seen as. I mean, these are corporate departments that, if the Elon stands, as Karen mentioned, the existence of these departments is mind-blowing to folks that follow Elon and are along for this program. So I think this is a feature, not a bug. I think he's picking these sorts of fights, and it parallels, I think, the control of Congress that was potentially coming in. I think you're seeing it in some of the discourse on the right as advertisers flee Twitter, and you're seeing people suggest that in the sort of realm of woke capital and ESG and social pressure on these sorts of corporations.
What do you make of that idea? I mean, he made that comment earlier said about this.
Kept thermonuclear war on the people who don't advertise with him. That doesn't sound like capitalism to me. That sounds like communism. I don't know. I think the issue is he's angry. They don't like him, and they don't want to advertise. And listen. If Satan had a company that they could sell stuff on, advertisers would advertise on it. Let me be clear.
That's right.
They
maybe Satan drinks coffee.
They don't,
or maybe it gets high.
Twitter's not a big advertising platform, as you can see by the numbers. So, and it's not a big choice. And one of the things I think is happening is if he lets Trump on, if they leave after that, they look even worse. So they're like, this is not worth our time. And that's
he's made clear he's not going to do that until there's some sort of outside entity.
I also think, to your point, Kara, I do think there are people testing it, but I think they're testing it because they see how Elon, in sort of the run-up to his taking it over, was saying he's going to let Trump on. He doesn't think this moderation or taking people off is fair. He thinks it's an attack against free speech. And so I think once he took it over, people were like, okay, well, let's check this out. The fact that they let go the moderation team is indicative that he is going to be a lot more, there's going to be a bigger allowance for that kind of
They didn't let go
hate
of the whole
speech.
moderation
Right,
team.
right.
Again, it's,
But-
I think what it is that there's usually, like, if there's not thousands of these people, there's
Yeah.
300 of them. 300, which Yoel Roth, who's the head of trust and safety there, I think that's what he has other titles, excuse me. But I don't think, they just want to test the system.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening.
Well,
He's not helping by tweeting
I mean,
things out.
I was going to say, we think about it, the idea of we are maybe past the point, Allison, of testing to see if Twitter is a space where you can really ignore boundaries. So I'm thinking about what the testing must look like at this point, because people aren't just dipping their toe in that particular pond. They are fully in and invested, and you just wonder what's going to happen when obviously the wave crashes on others for collateral damage.
Look, all I know is that every day seems like some new drama ever since Elon Musk took over. So we'll see what tomorrow brings. But it doesn't seem like things are evening out yet. All right. Meanwhile, there's this, because Kyrie Irving finally apologizing for not disavowing anti-Semitism after being suspended without pay. But the